Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Michael. I'm the Chief Executive of a company called Gas Marketing Automation. And I'm going to talk to you about a little bit about demystifying AI, talking about response marketing within AI, and then I'm going to actually demonstrate some of the work that we actually do in the AI space. So it's not going to just be a theoretical presentation. Just as a bit of a quick background, I did qualify as an attorney some years ago, many years ago. And what law taught me about was about forensic listening. And, you know, the answer is always in what people don't say. I think that's important for you to just be aware when you talk about anything, to marketing and AI for that matter. From law, I pivoted, I went into design, and then became the partner and marketing strategist for the BBO group. That was a very exciting time in my life where I worked with many different agencies, and I think that was a great time. I was then hunted by one of our clients at the time, Edgar's. I became the marketing director of Edgar's, and that was again a very enjoyable time for me. It was a time where I learned mostly about retail marketing. I had one of the great mentors in Carol Grohlman at the time. I then decided after 8 years to leave Edgar's. I consulted then in Australia, London, and South Africa. And then at that stage, I was then headhunted by MTN, became the marketing director of MTN, and then became the head of the chief executive of their digital incubator called Airborne, where we actually built the Call Me and patented Call Me. And although Vodacom and had to pay this guy McCarter a fortune of money for Call Me in the deeds office, if you were to have a look, you'll see that MTN actually patented and owned Call Me. So that's a whole story in its own right. That's a lot of fun. When I decided to leave MTN and Airborne, I was very heavily restrained because obviously I spent a lot of time around the world, especially in the airborne space, with different wide and wireless technology companies, whether it's all around the world for that matter. I then, because I was restrained and I really wasn't allowed to work for anyone, I then started consulting again, and it's where I met my partner now, Gary Berman, and we created Gas. And Gas is a marketing automation company. We work very much enabled by AI and automation. We work with some very large corporates and some medium corporates, and we've built systems. We have been working in AI now for already 6 or 7 years on AI, so we're pretty advanced in this space. But I'm going to give you a sort of a basic overview of AI just to demystify the whole thing, because there's a lot of stuff that goes around that we know about AI, and it's going to take away my job and all those type of things. So let's get into this. In today's session, I'm going to, as I say, just demystify AI. No hype, no fear, what the engine really does. I'm going to talk about marketing response. Marketing asks you for an answer and accounts it. Talking about scaling with agility. I'm going to share with you, although it's not going to be in part of the handout notes, our Gas AI system, which is all automated with a whole army of AI agents that are working for us and with us. But the most important thing here is that humans command, AI executes at scale. You'll hear that coming through this webinar quite a lot. And then I'm going to also talk a little bit about how I actually use it, because it's all well for the high tech guys. We've got systems engineers for creative, we've got AI, creative engineers, and all sorts of different strange names today that don't form the part of a normal, sort of organogram. But I think it's very important to say, well, then what's the best way to work with AI? Which platform should I use, and how can I use it? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. Somebody's going to, I think, Tracy or Kat, whoever, if I'm starting to run, maybe 50 minutes before the end, just let me know, because I can talk too much. And so forgive me for that in the meantime. So if I do go over, I'll try and cut back and go a little bit fast. Okay. So, all right. So let's first of all start off with demystifying AI. Okay. Let's just strip away the hype and the fear. Let's talk about what's under the bonnet here, right? The myth is that it thinks like a person. Oh, AI is going to take over my job. It doesn't. That's a myth. The truth is that AI recognizes patterns at nano speed. It's a genius platform, don't get me wrong. The algorithms are spectacular, but it's not human. It knows things is the myth. It doesn't. It predicts what's most likely going to come next, right? And it predicts from what it's read. So it's what you feed into it is what it can spew out, right? And that's very important. So when you, for instance, go into ChatGPT as an example and ask it a question, right, don't think for 1 second that ChatGPT is the answer, because it will more likely than anything hallucinate. It will, because the data that it's sourcing from is Google. There used to be a time many years ago that an encyclopedia, you'd have to go to the World Encyclopedia, or you'd get a major volume of Encyclopedia Britannica. Today, on Google, there's sort of different, sort of just people's opinions, and that's now taken as truth, and it's not. So just be very aware that it knows things, doesn't. It predicts what's likely to come from what it's read, and it will replace you as the myth. It won't replace you. If you want it to replace you, it will, by the way. You've got to know the one thing. If you think you're going to fail, yeah, you're going to fail. If you think you're going to succeed, you've got a high chance of succeeding. So I think that's an important thing. It's a mindset. What it actually does is it amplifies you. It scales your clarity, or it scales your confusion. So if you're confused, right, it'll scale it, and you'll be very confused, right? I think it's very important. It's not magic. It's not a threat, right? It's a very, very capable engine waiting to be driven. And I'll say it, and I'll say it a few times. If you drive it incorrectly, or if you use it incorrectly, what's going to happen is you're going to have a magnificent Ferrari without a steering wheel. And so that's where you just need to be very aware, of how to use this magnificent enabling platform. Okay, so I reframe it. People say, well, it's a tool, and just to make it easier, I said, rather call it an expert assistant. I see artificial intelligence as a massive opportunity to create human-like expert assistants, one that processes signals in nanoseconds, all of it at my fingertips, right? So treat it as a brilliant new hire. It's got extraordinary raw ability. It's got zero context. It's completely lost without a brief, and it's outstanding the moment it has one. So it reads everything that you give it, more information than a team could ever, instantly. It spots the signals. It finds the patterns humans miss in the noise. It predicts behavior. It anticipates what someone is likely to do next. And it never tires. It personalizes and optimizes at scale, always on. When you ask somebody to do something, they'll say thanks, and you start saying, look, change this. Okay, fine. And you say, change again. You start getting irritable. No. That's not how AI works. You can ask AI 100 times, it doesn't tire. It personalizes, optimizes at scale, and it's always on, right? Signals come in nanoseconds, but the judgment is always yours. Remember, you're in charge. And I'm going to say it and say it many times. Humans in command, AI will scale at speed, and which is spectacular. Okay. Another thing that's important is that it can't feel. Right? And that's the whole point. AI tells you what, the segment, the time, the message, that's that one, etc. But a human being can tell you why. It can tell, a human being knows that person may be lonely or ambitious or quietly afraid. AI doesn't have a soul. So let's just put this into context, right? Your empathy is not a soft skill. It's the most powerful analytical instrument, and the one thing that the machine depends on for direction. The machine needs the human, not the other way around. Just remember that. when you go into AI, when people talk to you about AI, it needs a human, not the other way around, right? So when we then move into this concept of mastering response, basically the difference between when we're talking about marketing or response marketing, so let me give you just a perspective. When you talk about brand marketing, it's about building brand over time. And you've heard me might have said before, brands, what is a brand? Products are made in the factory, the tobacco rolled in paper, that's the product made in the factory. The macho image of the cowboy man that copes so successfully with life in the slow lane, the camel man, that's made in the consumer's mind. Brands are made in the consumer's mind, right? So what you now is you're creating brands in the consumer's mind, and brand marketing builds awareness of what you want to, how you position your brand in the mind of the consumer over time, right? It's very hard to measure precisely, right? You have to be patient because it pays off later, and it builds equity. So as you build the brand over time and you're consistent on an ongoing basis and you're touching what consumers' needs, perceptions, behaviors are, then you're building equity, right? You're building, and that's until you start getting the real deal, which is brands are in fact trusted relationships. And that's what a brand really is. It's about creating trusted relationships, as opposed to response marketing, which is it asks for specific action. It's measured to the rand. It's accountable today, not someday. It starts a conversation that converts, right? That's why it's built, by the way, response marketing is built for SMEs, because every rand has to work, and you can see what is working this week, not next year, right? And if you can't count the answer, then it didn't happen. That's response marketing for you. So how do you now, sort of scale with agility, right? And it's the engine that we run at gas. So the first thing you have to do, just let's look at the big picture in terms of, and by the way, why I'm talking about gas specifically is because I'm going to show you how AI works in agency environments and how it can work for you. So whenever you're talking about, doing any type of a marketing program, using AI, you've got to think about the bigger picture always. And you plug in AI into every step of the response journey. Brand awareness, right? You're finding lookalikes, testing messages fast. Acquisition of new customers, right? The right person, the right moment, the new customer acquisition. Conversion, right? Interactive nurturing, right? And, getting customers to answer in real time. Interactive conversations that count becomes so important. Retention, your biggest and your most biggest asset, you'll probably know this, is your existing customer base. And I say this to even the largest corporates. Their biggest asset is their customer base. And it's about retention, retaining those customers, keeping those customers fresh, keeping it relevant, making messaging personalized. AI is magnificent at personalization, having timely follow-ups. Great opportunity for retention strategies using AI. And of course, advocacy is when you're turning buyers, right, into referrers, into advocates. And we actually create AI advocates that actually are getting ridiculous responses, click-through rates, which I'll share with you in a moment. So, and obviously underneath all of this is the data and response. It's the intelligent layer, right? That really triggers the next action automatically. So that's pretty important. And of course, this whole overarching marketing picture of awareness, acquisition, conversion, retention, and advocacy can be, you can plug in your AI into every aspect of your business journey. Right. I'll give you an example. We and I think it's important I've just raised this, is that at Gas Marketing, one of our principles is to give back, to the community. We've been very blessed to for me certainly to have spent time in university to have the network that I have. So what we did is we created a unity in our business called Gas for Growth. We then met with Ort South Africa, and we basically, and this is not for fees, by the way. This is giving back. And what we've created for them basically is because I think, all South Africa, have many programs in STEM that they're able to, sort of train underserved communities and about different, programs, whether science or technology, whatever it may be. What we're doing with them is we're creating an AI multilingual learner support AI agent on WhatsApp, right, for the big data program. And what it does is that when people go into a program, right, and for big data in particular, this is what we've just done now, or they're busy testing the program. We build a brain, we build an AI, which is a data center, right? We fill the brain with everything to do with that particular program, which is the big data program, all of the content. We have a system that ingests all of that into a brain, and now it becomes the brain, which is specific for big data. And then the learner who's actually been on the course, right now, he might have forgotten something, he wants to do a revision, he wants to ask, he needs something, he can ask a question to the AI agent at any time, 24/7, anything they want to know. It'll tell you which section it is from. It'll give you an answer. You can do a little bit of a quiz. It delivers resources on demand, right? It captures what learners are struggling with, so the course keeps improving, right? And that's what it does, right? So for the business, it's really important because after hours, customer questions can be answered, and things like that. It can be very important to have this program. So we've created for South Africa through for our Gas for Growth initiative, this AI agent that becomes a support, right, and an always-on member, right, of the ORT team that never sleeps. And that's basically a quick example of how we'll work with AI outside of our own business. Now, AI advocates are quite interesting. What we do is we create these AI advocates. They are lifelike people, and you can see agents, like AI personas, quite easily because they look like porcelain dolls. So we create hyper realism, and I'll show you hyper realistic personas. You won't know the difference because there's no such thing as a human being that's got a perfect skin. It doesn't happen. So we make sure that the skin tone has got the little blemishes and the bit more of a realism. The language has got to be spoken in the colloquial language. The tone has got to be done in the right tone. And that becomes very important. And we then create these AI advocates, and we use them in advertising on social media. And these campaigns, we've got Musa that's out in the marketplace for MTN and Cabela and Yanda and all these different advocates. We're getting at the moment a over 43% click-through rate. In other words, from the time a customer sees the ad or the video, they 43% plus click through to take an action, download the app, right, go to the next step. Now, the industry average for normal static ads is between 1 and 2%. That's industry average. And we're getting this plus 40. In fact, the latest campaign that we're doing at the moment with Musa for electricity at advance is getting 57% click-through rate, which it's actually insane. Why people are responding to AI agents is actually a bit of a mystery, but it's highly entertaining, and it is storytelling, which I'll talk to in a moment, okay? So it creates empathy, which I think is probably one of the important reasons. And it gets onto this whole concept of storytelling. Now, storytelling is nice. Storytelling is entertaining. Think about it rather as a concept called story selling. That's what we call it. It's storytelling is telling a story with commercial intent. So you've got a human story, right? What the customer fears, aspires to, right? That's what you supply. Then you add the AI reach into that, the persona. You create the persona. You create the brain. You create the personality of the persona, right? The platform, the format, right? And it keeps learning, right? And the human understanding sets the message. The AI takes it and lands it every single time. So a story without intent is entertainment. The story with intent moves someone from interest to a committed action. So every great brand is a human truth. but now we can tell it at scale. So now I'm going to share with you some stuff that is and I might have to move out of this presentation because just to get some pictures, rather to get some audio. But I'm just going to first share with you what we do in terms of the system itself, right? It's about human command, AI execution, and in one platform. So the first thing we do is we've got what we call the intelligent layer. Now, each of these are intelligent layers, and they've all got AI, agentic agents. Now, by the way, the difference between a chatbot and an AI and an agentic agent is very simple. A chatbot, you ask a question, it answers. You ask a question, it answers. A question, answer, question, answer. That's what chatbots are. We all know chatbots. Agentic agents are able to predict what's the next potential question, and it's able to learn, it's able to evolve, it's able to personalize, and that's really important. So the first thing we've done is we've created these first four, and it's not only just, I'll show you the rest in a moment, these first four pods that basically are part of the gas intelligent layer, the brain. So what we'll do for clients, right, is when we're working with a client, there are three agentic agents that are working in our brain, right, or in the client brain. And for each specific client gets its own. So the client's got a living knowledge base. We ingest like their websites and content, competitors, whatever it may be, right, all sorts of different content that we ingest into the brain. And then the brain is trained to crawl their sites, reads their documents, learns from their brain rules, right? And basically builds the brain, which is only the brain of the client. It's only your brain. And why that's so important is because when you go into the open AI environment, then it can go to also, it can sort of move and scale and, you know, and lean towards this, that, and whatever, and start hallucinating. You want to be able to have a brain that is closed loop, that is only talks to the brain that you want it to talk. You don't want to talk anything else. Then the next thing we've got is a researcher. Now what we do is that, so we've got now the client brain. Then, and by the way, each of these pods talk to each other. Now, then there's an agent that now then sends that information about this client brain to the researcher. Now, the researcher has got four agents. What it does, it commissions deep dive. It verifies the client records, the marketplace, the competitors, the positioning, locally and internationally. We just did one now, and it took us about 15, 20 minutes, not even. The researcher crawled probably about 800 plus different websites and different articles, and and primary articles and secondary articles, sort of websites and secondary information in order to get research based on that particular client's business, the competitor set, and what is happening in the marketplace. Once we have that research, and by the way, the researcher does not make a decision. There's no decisions that a researcher makes. It simply gives you the facts. Don't tell me what you want, what you think. I don't want to know what you think. I want you to tell me what you know. Once you've got the researcher in place, and it's now got the complete research, we then have an agent that then hands it over to our strategist. The strategist has been trained on how we think, on our strategic process, on the what makes a strategic, what makes up a strategy, what is a direction. And by the way, the strategy is about the direction that you want to take. It turns the fact base into a single-minded, defensible and offensible, proactive strategy, right? And every single point can be traced right to a fact, right? So which you obviously see in the research. So it's not based on hearsay or I think or my gut feel is this. It's based on fact. And obviously we bring our own intuition into the play once we've got what we've got. And then there's a proposal component which turns the whole strategy into a client-ready 24-page or whatever proposal, colored in their brand, ready to sign, that type of thing. So gate one, which is, approve the brain. Gate two is approve the strategy. The human decides that always, right? And there's no pod that trusts the last one. Every claim is checked before it goes. We've got QA brain AI agents that are checking facts all the time. Then when you then look at it now more specifically, so the brain, what does it do? It's got a coverage mapper. right? It maps the brain. It maps what the brain can answer. It's got Q&A, right, which is really important. Answers only from what the client's brain has. It's sharp. It's a sharpened agent. It refines and curates the knowledge. The researcher is the fact gatherer, right? It collects, verifies, in 3 different passes. So we do it once, twice, and 3 times again, just to make sure that it's got more. It's got a review editor. It keeps, drops, demotes claims that are not consistent. It's got a source verifier that rereads every page, supports it, checks it for truth. It's got a brief writer. It rewrites facts into research brief. The strategist, right, is the lead strategist that's facts into a commercial strategy, right, which is, it attacks the draft. It hunts weak tells. It creates offensive, defensive strategies. And of course, the proposal is a simple proposal program. So that's basically what you get in terms of our intelligent layer in our system. Then that's just the intelligence layer. So you've got the researcher, the 2 main parts of the researcher and the strategist, right? Because the brain you have to have first. And then you've got the execution layers. Then we've got like an audience intelligence, right? The right people, the most, not the most impressions. It's about who are we talking to? Are these the right people? We have a full creative studio for story selling, which is tested, at volume, creating, creative assets and different types of creative assets. We've got channel management, which is now, making sure that, our Meta, Instagram, TikTok are tuned daily, optimized daily, giving us daily reports, which is very important because that becomes critical. So when we're on social media, we can optimize every day, every 10 minutes, as opposed to waiting for a report to come out at the end of the month. We have what's called a pre-sales intelligence layer, which has become very, very successful. I'm going to show it to you in a moment. It's quite fascinating how pre-sales intelligence works. The problem that we have in the South African marketplace, especially with AI, is lead generation. So in the past, when you're able to do lead generation, you get leads. With AI, you get lots of leads. The trouble is that the call centers are inundated with leads after leads after leads, and there's very, very low close rates, and there's a massive cost to getting leads that really have got intent. So we want to get intent leads, right? With a pre-sales intelligence system, right? And then we've got a pre-sales intelligence conversion dashboard, right? Which bridges from the marketing strategy to a sales strategy, right? And then we've got media and gas, where the spend is, and these are all parts of an agency sort of like ecosystem. So we have and why I'm showing this to you is to show you how AI works, right? In a response agency. It's a systems thing, right? It's actually very, very easy, and it's lovely. So you've got research, you've got strategy, you know who your audience is, you're doing creative work that is relevant, you're talking about the right channels to market. You've got pre-sales intelligence to qualify leads. You've got lead management, and you've got optimization, and you've got all that in a system that actually works amazingly. So it's a closed loop AI growth engine, from research strategy, targeting the right audience, creating and deploying through story selling, right? Qualifying through PSI, and I highlighted PSI because I'm going to just show you a view of PSI at the moment, and then managing, converting, and then optimizing. So what our AI-enabled pre-sales intelligence does is it scores intent, because not every lead has got an intent to buy, right? So what we do is we have an interactive AI-based conversation with a prospective customer. Every inquiry is rated the moment it lands, not hours later, right? So as the agent is talking to this prospect, it qualifies them. It works in prospect, right? It qualifies them. Are they a low, medium, or high intent customer, right? So it qualifies and nurtures the customer, and then the hot leads, the customers that have got real intent to buy, are then handed over to the client's call centers. And the reason that they do that is that they're getting a fantastic response to the customers who are ready to buy, as opposed to a lead. Right. So let me just show you what this looks like. Okay. It's going to pop out of this presentation into another. I'm just going to move this out of the way. So this is just this is our intent engineering, and you can see it's actually just live. So it says like, "Hi Michelle, thanks for tapping in." Right? How are you managing your leads right now? You know, it says, "Oh, we're doing through spreadsheets and WhatsApp." So there's no, and this is just a typical interactive conversation that's going place. And as it's going on and on and on, you want to get to an intent score. And once it's a high intent score, then it gets passed over to the client, right? Yeah. So there, you know, now it's yeah, this is it. You know, how your leads going. We pay for a lot of leads. You know, it's the usual pattern. You know, that type of thing. What does it cost you per lead? It cost me about 180 rand. So 9 out of 10, you know, are paid for. They never sold to. Right. Let's have a meeting. You can chat. Sorry, excuse me. Chat to them on WhatsApp, whatever it may be. And then these are just the sort of clients we got. And then it talks about the volume without quality, leads, you know, speech and leads is everything. You need to have intent signals. If there's a feedback loop, that's got to be that's always broken, right? You've got to nurture. You know, cold leads are cold leads. You don't want a cold lead. You want a lead that is real, right? And all this is done through AI. So this is the journey that takes place. So we reach people, right? There's an engagement process. There's a conversation process, and then we have our PSI score: what's hot, what's warm, what's cold, and then they become sales ready. So we don't want to widen the funnel; we want to sharpen the funnel, and then the customers can chat to us and the like. And then, of course, you can follow a lead, from the click of the ad all the way through to its final destination. And this is a typical thing about the conversation, how the PSI scoring works, how the routing works, how the intelligence layers work, right? And and this is basically, we've got our own funnel that we do, right? This month, and how many qualified leads we've got. So we've actually stopped doing leads because we need to make sure that that we're actually delivering on the clients that we've already got. And this is what conversations we'd form. This is the type of thing that we'll do. So this is a good example. This is my partner, Gary. Gary is my partner. He's our technical guy. He's been a data guy for many years, right? He built one of South Africa's largest consumer databases, and he runs our lead gen business through every technology shift, every new platform, every new promise. And one thing's never changed: that sales teams kept getting handed leads that weren't ready to take the next action, right? And so that's why we built this system, right? It's about human command and AI intelligence. And our business is made up, the top guys, the orange section there, as you can see, there's Aiden, our digital designer, Sinead's a web developer, Sharice, our accountant, I'm the chief executive, there's Gary, our MD, Don's our chief growth officer, Bruce is our account director, we've got, and so it goes, right? And underneath that, we've got the lead researcher, the adjudicator, the targeting expert. These are all AI agentic agents. Zoe is our compliance expert. We name them and we give them personas, right? We've got the proposal expert, and there's Zaki, who's our creative expert. And these are experts in their fields. You can't be an expert in everything, and neither can AI. Right, there's our copywriter, we've got our fact gatherer, we've got our brain mapper, right? And so each of these agents are working. So although we've got 14 staff members that are humans, we've got about 40 AI agents that are working as part of our team, right? As you can see. So that's just quite an interesting way of showing, human command and AI execution. All the people at the top are like our senior account managers and operations managers and people like that. They're actually working, and our entire system is run through AI and automation. Everything we do. So that's why we can have a small team, but we can have massive scale in our business. And I think that's quite an important aspect to think about. Okay, so that's basically giving you an idea of just a demo in action. Our operating principle is, let me see what my time is. Yeah, good. Operating principle basically is, there's a human at every gate, right? You've got to approve the brain. You've got to approve the strategy. Nothing happens without a human saying yes, right? Every claim is traced, right? You've got to make sure you don't hand things over to AI and let it happen. That's not going to happen. It's not the way to do it, right? So there's different AI platforms that you can use for different things. So, for instance, if you want deep reasoning, use Claude Opus. If you want to do prose at length, the proposal with deep, with brief writing, use Claude Fable 5. That works nicely. If you want to do ingestion plumbing, for crawling, embedding, retrieving, all that sort of stuff, use Claude Haiku and Voyager together. Now, there's not one size fits all. We have at the moment about 43, 44, because I'm not paying for it, different AI platforms that are all working together. So, for instance, if you want proper language, you use something like 11 Labs because it's got, decent language for certain, sort of language sets, not all, for hyperrealism, etc. There's different horses for different courses, basically. That's how it works. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop out of this because it's going to be a little bit difficult, so bear with me, please. And the reason I'm doing this is that I want to just show you our actual AI system in action. So I'm going to move out of here. I'm going to get back into the presentation, right? I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. Bear with me, okay? And I'm going to now share again, but I'm just going to share in a Chrome tab, and I'm going to share the agency of now, which I'm now sharing, right? This is this part over here. This is, sorry, the agency of now, right? Okay, let me get this out here. So this is our agency of now, and it's a live dashboard, right? So I'm now going to okay, right. So this is now exactly what I've told you. There's your brain. There's the researcher. There's the strategist. There's the proposal, right? There's the audience on gas, right? There's the influence on gas. There's the creators of gas. There's a media on gas. There's PSI on gas, etc., right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into influencers on gas, right? And these are all different AI. These are all AI influencers. I can show you one or two of them if you want. I'm not sure if you want to see it. This was my partner. You saw that picture of him. This is an AI of him. We just did that for the fun, right? And so in this showcase, I'll just show you something that we did.
Sorry, Sam, we can't see anything.
Oh, let me just it'll be nice if I reshare that. Thank you for telling me that. I'm resharing my agency of now, Chrome tab, there, right. Can you see now? Hello?
Yes.
You can see now. Okay, so I've gone into okay, so what I've done is I've gone into the agency of now. I've gone into the section which is the influences on gas, right? And I'm going to just open up this thing here. This is now something that we're doing for a client. Whoops, this is a simple MP4, but everything you see here is AI. There's nothing that is real. Okay. Fascinating, eh? Unbelievable. What you can do today is actually quite crazy. I mean, I'm going to just because I've got 15 minutes, I'm going to just get out of here. I'm just going to stop sharing this for a moment. And then I'm going to just go back and share my entire screen. So I can get back to the webinar presentation, which is here. Can you see that now?
Yes, Sam.
Okay, good. All right. So I've just shown you that ad, right? Oopsie. Okay, let's go. Now I'm going to just spend 10 minutes talking to you about how I actually use it personally, right? Okay, because think of, I mean, our staff are young, dynamic, tech-centric people that, are systems engineers and that type of thing. But I'm already, in the second half of my life, and that's provided I'm going to live to 120, that is. So, the way I use it is actually quite interesting because it's the way you can use it very easy. And it's very simply like this. First of all, you've got to know that you're in the driver's seat, okay? So give it a brief, not a question. Say what outcome you want, for whom, and what winning looks like. Then feed it. Offer up your URL or a URL or a website or an article or a document or a PowerPoint presentation, right? The primary sources that define your area of expertise, because context for AI is fuel. That's the fuel. That's the engine that's the fuel that drives the engine, right? Then demand truth. And I've got this as a precursor of everything I do. It's actually in the, because I use mostly the Claude, and in the pro Claude and the systems you can actually say this, that truth is not negotiable. Not what. Don't tell me what I don't want to hear. What I want to hear. I want to know researched, evidenced, sources named. I'm not interested in what you think. I'm interested in what is fact. Now, that's how you have to talk to your AI, because otherwise it is going to hallucinate. It is going to tell you what you want it to know. Then coach it, right? Tell it who to be. I want you to be a world-class response marketer. I want you to be a world-class, whatever it is you are. Be that world-class person. Put it into your mind. What is it that you want to be? I want to be this world-class whatever, right? And then hold it to that standard relentlessly. And then interrogate it. The first answer is never going to be the right answer, even if you think it's great, right? I often, when I'm finished seeing something and I really actually enjoyed the presentation that I've got, I then answered a simple question. Is this the best you can do? And you'll be quite surprised. It comes back and says, good point. And it comes back with something better. So never accept that first answer. Ask the question. That changes everything, right? Is this the best you can do? And then commit, right? The more serious you are, the more serious an impact for the results. It's quite fascinating because it's an algorithm, right? You think it can't see you. Well, rationally, it can definitely see you, right? You want to be serious, it'll be serious. You want to be a world-class person, right, in your field of expertise, then it will be. You want to just ask a dumb question, it'll give you a dumb answer. That's for sure. Just remember, right? Without direction, you're going to build a fast car with no steering wheel. And that's such a critical component to be, right? So when you do, just in terms of prompt engineering, which is really asking questions, that's the new words we have today called prompt engineering. You used to ask questions, now you prompt the system, right? You want the 6 really serious things that you need to do. In every serious prompt, everywhere, you've got to go, number 1, who it must be. World-class response marketer, right? The context, your world, the URLs, the audience, what you have already tried, tell it. Then the task, 1 outcome, stated plainly, not 3 tasks, not 5 tasks, not 1 break, right? Just say, this is what I want to achieve. The format, how do you want it back? The length, the structure, do you want it in a PowerPoint? Do you want a PDF? Right? Do you want it in a document? Right? Do you want it in your colors? Do you want it in your CI? Do you want it in a client CI? They'll give it to you. Right? And then, of course, if you say you want it in the client CI, then you've got to hand up the client CI. You can do it just by giving the client's website. It'll pick it up. Then example, you might want to give 2 or 3, what good looks like. It's something that you might want to consider. And then give it also guardrails, right? The truth clause, word limits, what to avoid. Don't give me, Zs, give me British English. Don't give me American English. Simple things like that, right? It becomes very important. Vague in, average out. Precise in, you get world class, right? And so because the model is not a mind reader, right? It's a probability engine that fills every gap you leave, right? Specificity beats cleverness. Be specific, right? Precise brief of 80 words outperforms a vague one of 500 words, right? Google's own prompting guidance recommends including examples rather than none. Show it the target. Show it what you want to try to achieve, right? And then there's 3 moves really, that separate the expert from the tourist, we can call it, right? Show, don't tell. Give 2 or 3 examples of outputs that you want. Examples, teach patterns, that type of thing, right? Then reason before answering. Hard problems, ask it to work through the thinking first, then give the answer. Force the workings. Work through this, right? A chain of thought prompting, right? That type of thing, right? And by the way, Google research in 2022 says, right, newer reasoning models do so much, right, of this on their own nowadays. But the more you can get your AI to reason for you before giving an answer is great. And make it critique itself, right? What are the 3 weakest points in that answer? Now rewrite it and fix them. Awesome. What is how is this going to, I think it was, one of the authors, I forget his name at the moment, he says, is this presentation going to give me 3 reasons why it's going to fail, and now fix it. That's how you start playing the game, because it is a fantastic resource and it doesn't complain, right? And it doesn't ask it needs tea, they've got a headache. None of that, right? It's a beauty. And of course, you always want to have that anti-hallucination clause, right? Which is, if you don't know, say no. Never invent a source. And this is talking now to the AI. Give it explicit permission to say, I do not know, right? And it reduces the whole hallucination, because it does hallucinate. Because humans also hallucinate, by the way. But make sure you don't get it to hallucinate, right? So really what you're going is you're now moving into rather from prompt engineering to what I call context engineering, right? It's a model. The model is the processor. The context window is its working memory. Your job is to be the operating system, loading exactly the right information for the right task, right? You're giving it context, right? You're right. You keep the brand, tone, rules, and saved project, right? Or system prompt. Make sure you got that, of course, right? Don't retype them, right? Then feed only what matters, right? Which is, I think, important. Compress, summarize long histories, long threads, drift. Detail gets lost in the middle. And then isolate one conversation, one job, right? Give it context, right? Do not run a whole strategy and copyright at the same thread. Forget it. Rather, do the one job. You want to run a strategy. Now you got the strategy and you're happy with the strategy and you've refined your strategy. Now say, right, give me a communication strategy for this particular, for whatever, for a particular mail to a prospect or whatever it may be. So stop writing better questions. Start engineering better context. Becomes a very important component. Here's a brief that I'll give typically. You can take it. You can use yourself. It's in the thing. Just try it. It's worthwhile. Your role. First time I'm giving it a role. You are a world-class response marketer. You are a world-class whatever you are. Context. This is my business. This is my market. Right? These are the URLs that I'm going to give you. My customer's unique problem to be solved is A, B, and C. Give it in their words, right? The client will tell you what their problems are. Always ask your clients, whatever their clients are, or your prospects, or even yourself, is what is the UPS? Right? There used to be the USP, unique selling proposition, right? That's just what it used to be. Well, it still is really. It is a unique selling proposition, but make it a UPS. What is a unique problem that needs to be solved? Write that into your context, into your brief, into your prompt for AI. And then the constraints. Truth is not negotiable. Research before you answer. Name your sources. Flag every assumption. If you don't know, say so. Never tell me what I want to hear in the task. Give me 10 response angles. Argue against the weakest 3. Finish with what would you make this fail? Right? Fail rather. Apologize. So in other words, find out, if what you now finally come up with, is it going to fail and why, and then fix it. All right. So you're pushing the limits all the time. you're giving it direction, you're giving it knowledge, you're giving it truth, right? Which is actually not right. And then you're going to set the right standard, right? So remember one thing, of course, is the first answer is never the right answer, right? Is this the best you can do? Challenge it. Argue against your own answer, right? Weak thinking collapses, right? Don't be scared to ask it again. Challenge AI. This is a fun tool because it's great. It is spectacular. So use your own intellect, your own intuition, right, to challenge, right, what you're hearing, right? Show me the proof. If you see something that's great, show me the proof, right? That's really important because that'll separate fact from just nice stuff, and then elevate, which is what would the top 1%, right, do differently, right? That's where world class lives, right? So each run costs you 30 seconds. That's all, right? Together, the difference between average and unmistakable. And at the end of the day, what AI can do for you is it can make your presentations, it can make your proposals, it can make your prospectus, it can make your pitches, unmistakably spectacular if you do it correctly. If you don't, then it's AI. That's what you're going to do. And pick the right tool for the job, right? Not the tool that's in the headline. There's so many tools. There's so many. I mean, we got, as I say, lots and lots and lots of text. But I mean, if you think of ChatGPT, which is right, OpenAI, it's a versatile all-rounder. It's got the broadest ecosystem, voice, images, right? If you only pay for one, start here. So if you're going to start with one thing, start with ChatGPT. Then there's Claude, Anthropic. It's got, it's more for longer documents, for writing quality, careful instruction following, strategy work, brand voice. Claude does really good at that. Gemini, which is Google, it's native to Google Workspace. It's got strong multicodal, and it's got deep research across Docs, Sheets, and Gmail. So Gemini is also, these are all good, by the way. They're all excellent. They're exceptional, in fact. I'm just saying, you're going to choose one exceptional from the other. Then there's Copilot, which is Microsoft. That lives inside Word, Excel, Outlook, Teams, right? It's the obvious choice if you run on Microsoft 365, 365. So Copilot, yeah, it's good. I mean, I personally, I'm not going to say what I personally do because that's subjective. Then there's Perplexity, which is search native. That's research with live sources and citations. So if you're doing a research piece, right, use it when you need to check, not to compose. So don't use Perplexity to compose messaging or campaigning or strategies. Use it to do research. That's what you can do. And then for automation, you can use, whether it's Zapier, Make, or N8N, there are a whole lot of automation tools and platforms, and they change every month, right? So you have to try and stay abreast. It becomes all virtually impossible. But fortunately, I've got a partner who's a compulsive, addictive personality. Great. If you're ever going to get a partner in your life, get one like mine. I've got the best partner in the world. He gets up at 7 in the morning, and at 9 o'clock when we start our creative review process with our whole team from different. We've got Johannesburg office, Cape Town office, Durban office, and Portuguese office. And Portugal, that's where our creative guys sit. We all come together every morning. We say a prayer for each other, and he, by that stage, he already knows what is replacing what, and what's switching off and what's switching on. And it's quite fascinating. It's beautiful to have. So get yourself one of those. they don't make them on AI, but you got to be blessed to have a partner like I've got. Remember, I think the important thing over here is that AI really amplifies what you already are. It scales your clarity, or it scales your confusion, and it scales faster than no one could ever have done, but that you could ever do alone. If you've got no direction, generic output, sounds like everyone, becomes plausible nonsense, it's delivered confidently. People know that it's AI. It answers shaped just to please you, and it gives you a faster average. Right? When you're in the driver's seat, you get becoming expert outputs. You've got evidence, source, uncertainty is named, right? Answers that tell you the truth. It's faster, world class, right? As I said before, many times, a fast car with no steering wheel, is not transport. It's a crash with better acceleration. That's what it is, right? The car's now free. The steering wheel is you. Be the steering wheel. Direct it. Command it. It will be the best thing you can do. So in turn, finally, pick one task, just one task. Don't go crazy. Don't try and reinvent the wheel, right? Just write one brief, right? Play with it, right? Don't just take it too seriously, right? Remember, you don't have to be serious about anything here, right? Ask a truth clause, right? Give it your URL and 3 sources. Context is fuel, remember, right? Ask, is this the best you can do? It's really cute. It'll give you an astounding answer. And write one genuinely personalized message to a real customer, right? Once you've done it, this whole thing, and send it and see what happens, right? Start small, start this week. Momentum is the only strategy that compounds. Start small, start this week. Momentum is the only strategy that compounds, right? And remember, and I think, change is not here to take something from you, right? It is here to show you what you're capable of next. Don't be fearful of it. Enjoy it, right? AI didn't make your skills irrelevant. It made the wrong skills irrelevant, and it elevated the right ones. That's the important thing. Remember, the medium shifts, the mission never does, right? New channels, new tools, new realities. One question never changes. How do you start a conversation that matters? And that's really what AI is for me. And I love it. And I can't wait for the next thing now, because the next thing comes, everyone's going to get all scared. Oh, I'm going to fall over. Don't. Enjoy it, celebrate it, and make it better. Because remember one thing, and I know it sounds a bit crazy, but they say, will it ever take over man? Well, think of it this way. Who created AI? Man. Who created man? Okay, well, if you're going to start comparing man to, our great audio design, well, then you should rethink. But thank you very much for listening. Are there any questions? I think we've got maybe 5 seconds to ask questions. Apologies.